Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Women's Fitness Academy podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ellen. I'm also a female empowerment coach and I specialize in binge eating and body confidence. Today I am here with a guest, of course, and this is actually the sister of someone who I was really good friends with when I lived in Bondi, which is so funny. I actually can't believe that we haven't connected properly until now. But anyway, her name is Emma. She is an accredited sports nutritionist and she works online with females, I guess, as well. Females and males, maybe.
Yeah.
Probably should have double checked that before I asked. Anyway, Emma, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And yeah, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, and I've already stopped up now, so, everything is fine.
Now I won't feel so bad.
Yeah, now you don't have to feel bad if you stop up. Honestly, I think every podcast I'm like, oh, whoops. But, oh well. It doesn't matter. You guys love it because it's real. I know that's the feedback I've gotten. So let's go.
Absolutely. Being like real and authentic, I suppose it's so much easier to listen to, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I always love to just listen to conversations when you feel like you're just in a cafe and you're sitting next to some people and you're like, oh, I wonder what they're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, for the listeners who don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and how you got into the industry?
So I am an accredited sports nutritionist and I do work specifically with people who are really interested in fueling their performance. So specifically powerlifters. I run my online coaching business with my husband, Nick, who is our strength coach. And I do all of the nutrition for our clients. So as I said, I do work with primarily people who are really interested in fueling their performance, learning what their body needs to perform at their best. I do try and shift away from kind of weight loss or body composition clients just because that's not what I'm truly passionate about. And I really want to educate people and help people learn how to utilize nutrition to get the most out of their training, but also their health. So we run our business called Enzy Lifestyle Performance, and we do it mostly online, but we do also work at a local gym called Hunter Strength and Performance here in the Hunter Valley, where Nick does do some face-to-face sessions, and I have a little office in there that I will do nutrition consultations as well, which I absolutely love seeing people face-to-face as well as online. It feels a little bit more personal and it's nice to connect with people that way too. But I got into the industry back in 2019 when I started managing gyms, and that was when I decided to do my certificates in personal training. I lived in a small town at the time, and that pretty much just snowballed from there. I got very caught up in kind of like the fitness influencer side of things, and I suppose I felt pressured to fit a certain industry standard where I felt like I had to go down the route of bodybuilding and competing in bikini competitions.
Yeah, I remember because when I first started following you, you were very into like bodybuilding and we're gonna compete, get up on stage and all that stuff, and then you just changed, and I love that. Like, I don't think that anyone needs to be a certain way forever. I think it's super cool that we see a lot of coaches transfer, like going from fitness nutrition into like business or mindset, or I've done a big change as well. Like, I used to coach nutrition and training, and now all I do is mindset. So I think it's really cool that you've been able to take that step and didn't feel like you had to be just bodybuilding forever. But I'm really curious to learn, like, what was it that what's switched in you? Like, why did you make the change from training to look a certain way to training, like doing powerlifting and being strong?
Well, I guess really like the shortest answer of that story, and there's of course like a much longer answer behind that, which I will go into, but long story short, I just woke up one day and I was just really unhappy. I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. I was sick of my life being consumed by bodybuilding. I stepped on stage for the first time in 2021, and I had quite a few preps before that where I either didn't make it to stage through things like COVID, or I just didn't feel ready within myself. I had worked with some coaches that were really restrictive, and to be honest, they should have never really put such a I wasn't young, like I am 32 years old. I did find the gym quite late in life, but I was quite young to training. I was quite new to nutrition, training, building muscle, all of those kinds of things. And, coaches would I feel like sometimes, not everyone, but there are certain coaches out there that do prey on, these young people just to get a client on stage. And I felt like that had been me. And at the time, so this was back in 2019, and it did kind of start a little bit of a restrict binge cycle with me, I suppose. I had grown up for my entire life. Like, my dad goes to the gym. He has done, for forever, since I can remember, which I think is why my sister and I got into the industry, why we're both personal trainers. Well, I'm not a personal trainer anymore, but we were at one point. And yeah, essentially, like, the reason why we did it was for health. And then all of a sudden, I kind of started working with these bodybuilding coaches, and I felt so restricted. For the first time in my life, I kind of experienced binge eating. I wouldn't say it was something that was very severe or something that, happened often, but it was just in this small prep where I would smell McDonald's and I would run in and get like these packets of chicken nuggets and just like, no, I shouldn't be eating them because I was in a competition prep, but I just couldn't. And it was just because I didn't have enough experience. So I took myself away from that for a little while. I kind of laid the foundations. I focused on big, long off seasons, building muscle, building up my calories. I was introduced to flexible dieting. And that's when I did my second prep, which got called off, thank you to the 2020 COVID. But that was a lot more smooth sailing. It was a lot more enjoyable. I didn't have any of those issues or any of those, binge eating tendencies or anything like that throughout that prep. And then went into another off season when the show was cancelled, focused on building muscle again, and then stepped on stage in 2021. Now, when I stepped on stage in 2021, I was actually extremely disappointed with the outcome. I lost a lot of muscle throughout that prep. As bodybuilding preps kind of cause, like, there's a lot of low energy, a lot of fatigue. I became very food focused, even though I didn't kind of go off course. It was just consuming my brain. Like, I was always scrolling Instagram, looking at food pages and, planning essentially all of my meals out for the next year after my competition prep, which really in itself is not healthy. And then, I stepped off stage and I was just so unhappy with the outcome. Like, I didn't like how I looked. I felt like I lost a lot of muscle. Within that time, I had lost a lot of strength within my training. I got injured because I wasn't eating enough calories, which is quite common when you are under fueling. And then I feel like maybe a little bit of hate almost fueled my next off season, because I just had like this thought where I had to prove myself, I had to do better, I had to look better, I had to place well, and I just had placed so much external pressure on myself, and it consumed my whole life. And my off season, I was tracking meticulously to the gram. I was making meal plans. I was sticking to this meal plan. It was obviously a very high calorie meal plan because it was in an off season, but I wouldn't veer from it. And I was investing so much money into like bodybuilding courses and coaching and posing and shoes and all things that you could imagine. And eventually one day, I think I just woke up and I was like, why am I even doing this? Like, I'm not even happy. Why am I doing something that is making me so miserable?
Wow. And then you just changed.
Yeah, it just changed. Yeah, like I just flipped the script essentially, or like it was like a switch just went off. And it was a bit of a funny experience, like moving away from it, because I had put so much time into it. And I don't regret that path, because I truly do believe it got me to where I am today. And it's had such a positive outcome since I made that change to go more into powerlifting and strength and changing my career path. And I'm so happy that happened, because I really don't believe I'd be here today without that little chapter of my life either.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like that with everything that we do. And I always say this, I'm such a huge believer that the best teachers are the ones who've actually gone through it themselves. And the people who have struggled with things, like, it's like, for example, when I started CrossFit, I really struggled learning this movement called snatch, which is essentially you get a barbell from the floor over your head. And I just could not learn it. And it wasn't until I finally got a coach who had also struggled with this movement that it just clicked. I was like, oh my God, because they tested everything. So they have so many more tools in the toolbox. And it's the same thing with like what you've experienced and like with your tracking and trying different coaches and getting on stage and not being happy and, you know, all the pressure you felt that on yourself. Now you have all those tools to help your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is so true. I think really, as somebody who does work with people, as a nutritionist, you have nutrition clients, you can't just have a one size fits all approach. Like tracking macros is not for everyone. And I think a lot of people who grow up in the industry, or they kind of follow that path of bodybuilding and flexible dieting and things like that, although there can be merit, of course, in tracking and flexible dieting, I do feel like a lot of people are very just that they're in that one box, and it's the only thing that they feel that they can do in order to reach their goals.
Yeah. Oh God, 100%. And especially when tracking got so big at one point, like, I mean, it's still big, but I feel like it really hit its peak, like maybe last year or a few years ago, and every second person, like literally my mom's boyfriend was tracking his food. It's like, he doesn't even train. Like,
like, why are you doing this? I have no idea.
Yeah, literally. It was just like everyone was tracking. It was just like, oh, you don't have my fitness pal? Like, you don't track your macros? Like, that's weird.
100%. And I feel like there was a stage too where people were saying, well, you can't see results if you don't track your macros, which couldn't be further from the truth. And sometimes it can actually be something that stops people from seeing the results, because it can add so much pressure and so much stress. And for some people, sure, it's easy. It's tracking some things into an app. It's a few calculations, it's some numbers. But to other people, it can just be so overwhelming that it actually ends up making them not want to do anything when it comes to their health and nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when I first started out, I was very much like, I definitely was one of those people who like macro tracking is the best. It's like, save your life, like, balance, it's the best thing ever. Anyone can do it. But as you grow as a coach and as you work with more clients and, do more courses, education, whatever, you're going to realize that it's definitely not the answer to everything. Like you said. So what are some other tools that you use with your clients to help them achieve results? Because obviously if they're competing in something like powerlifting, they need to eat enough food. So how do you help your clients with this?
So I have a few different ways that I help my clients, and it can change like varying on where that client is within their training schedule, but also their life. I find that we all go through different seasons of life. Some might start really wanting to give macro tracking a try, but then it just doesn't work for them, or, vice versa. They might start on what I like to call a flexible meal plan, which is what I do like to start my clients on. And it's more of a template rather than I have a dog going crazy in the background.
I was wondering, what is that noise?
Been walking past the house. Yeah, they just love like watching the street, and the minute someone walks past with a dog, it's like they're just going crazy. So I do apologize. So yeah, what I call a flexible meal plan template, which is designed to take the stress and the pressure off from tracking into MyFitnessPal. Because the one thing that I do find with a lot of people, they start tracking and it's like, okay, well, I've got these numbers, I'm hitting them, that's enough. Well, at the end of the day, we want to consider other variables, especially when it comes to performance, such as your fueling timeline. So making sure that you are fueling into your sessions. And this will vary depending on the time of the day that you train at. But for example, if you're training the afternoon, you have a full day of food that you can utilize to help improve your performance. So obviously having your more whole grain carbohydrates at the start of the day, more dietary fiber, good quality fats, fruits, veggies, and our everyday nutritious foods. And as you get closer to that training session, we can start to taper down things like your dietary fats, your fiber, and have more of your simple or your easily digestible carbohydrates. So fueling into that session to really help with performance, and obviously making sure that we're having adequate protein for recovery, having adequate fruits and veggies, and getting in enough vitamins and minerals. So sometimes when you do just give people a macro target, they don't consider all of those things. And although, of course, yes, you will teach them throughout the course of coaching or, whatever it is that you're doing with that client, sometimes at the start, it's just too overwhelming to figure out tracking your foods plus following these guidelines into an app. So that's why most of my clients, I will steer them towards a flexible meal plan template, and we'll kind of just see how it goes. They can pick foods that they like off that. They can make their own meal plans from picking different breakfasts, picking different snacks, and then say, for example, picking different grains at lunchtime and pairing with a different protein, pairing with a different vegetable or a fruit sauce, depending if it's a savory or a sweet meal, and going off building balanced plates, and therefore kind of teaching them more portion control and informed eating, which I think really sets people up a lot better for lifelong success within, whether it's fueling performance or even if it was somebody wanting to lose weight, for that sustainable lifelong result where you're not relying on putting everything into an app and not being able to go out and essentially not know what to eat because you don't have that app with you, for example.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I remember there was one day where my MyFitnessPal didn't work, and literally every single person was posting on Instagram like, oh my God, like what's happened? How do you get it back?
Yes, everyone was like, my MyFitnessPal is down. What do I do?
Yeah. It's actually so crazy. And I love what you said about it's not just about like the macros, and it just made me think about like the coaches I worked with in the past, where literally one huge one in America and one huge one in Australia, or two huge ones in Australia, and they both literally just had like spreadsheets of like, put your macros in here. There was no like going over to MyFitnessPal. There was no fiber target. There was no like, are you eating enough calcium, or are you eating fruit and vegetables? It was just hit your macros, your calories, and your weight.
Yeah. And so many coaches, well, I mean, it's hard to say now because I haven't looked into coaches for a really long time, but back when I did start to come up in the industry and I wanted to work with coaches for my own nutrition and fitness goals, it was just macro targets. Like, sure, they might say eat a fruit and veggies, but they didn't actually give you the support that you needed in order to make those food choices to ensure that you are hitting close to your recommended dietary intake. A lot of them wouldn't even discuss the Australian dietary guidelines with me, which really should be a fundamental part of somebody's nutrition plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously, like I work with a lot of girls with binge eating or disordered eating behaviors now. And one of the first things we do is we look at their nutrition, and it's like they're just following this plan that some nutrition coach has given them. And it's like, where are your vegetables? Like, do you not eat any fruit? And it's like, oh, but I eat protein. And yeah, but that's not going to solve all your problems. Like, that's probably why you're so hungry all the time, because you're not eating any fruit or vegetables.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just think too, I think it's really important to sometimes remind people to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. So you might be really focused on your body composition goals now, which is great. Like, you can definitely work on them, but think about the future as well and what nutrition can actually provide for long-term health and, eliminating or minimizing the risk of chronic disease and setting you up for a healthy aging period where you are getting older and you still have energy and you're not getting as sick as your peers and things like that too. Just like training can benefit people as they age too.
Yeah, for sure. It's so much more than just those little numbers on my fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is.
Yeah. So going from bodybuilding to powerlifting, like, how did you make that transition?
Look, to be honest, it was a complete accident. My husband is a powerlifter. So when we met, he hadn't actually powerlifted for, a really long time. He had lived in America previously and he had done a lot of his powerlifting over there. So when we met, he wasn't actually really training for anything particular. He was just going to the gym. And then he just got back into powerlifting and strength training, and I thought it looked really fun, and I was like, I will try that too, and I really loved it.
Yeah, oh, that's so good. Did you struggle? Because I know when I came out of my bodybuilding comp, like when I was like, nope, this is not for me, I really struggled with the weight gain and like looking at myself in the mirror and stuff like that, and that's why I found like CrossFit really helped me. I assume like probably for the same reasons as why you got into powerlifting, that it just focuses on something that's not your body. Did you find that you struggled at all with like not feeling as lean all the time, or how was that process for you?
always pretty good with not being lean. I was one of those people that I really appreciated the off season in bodybuilding, and I knew how important it was for overall health, building muscle, and obviously taking your physique to the next level. So when I stopped bodybuilding, I was halfway through a prep, so I was a little bit leaner than what I would be for most of the year. However, I was always kind of a little bit the opposite. So for me, I come from a really underweight background. So when I was in my early 20s, I kind of found that the clean eating and the health food crazes and those kinds of things. And unfortunately, I kind of developed a little bit of, I suppose you would call orthorexia, where I really was quite scared of processed foods. I was scared to eat anything that wasn't deemed healthy, even though, you know, I didn't even understand what unhealthy or healthy was back then. I was just falling for marketing and, you know, what I would hear these clean eaters on the internet say. And unfortunately, I did actually drop quite a lot of weight. So I'm 169 centimeters tall. At the time, I wasn't training, so I had absolutely no muscle mass. And I dropped down to between 48 to 49 kilos, which is quite normal. Yeah. For someone
that's
with
so little.
Yeah. And I was so weak. Like, I was tired all of the time. I had no idea why, of course, back then. I have a border collie, and he could literally just pull me from street to street. One time he actually pulled so hard to chase a bird that I went flying and fell on my butt in the middle of the street, which is so embarrassing.
Oh my gosh.
And like, now he wouldn't even have a chance to do that. I can actually walk my border collie and my bully at the same time, and they, you know, they are strong, but they can't pull me around. And yeah, I couldn't open jars and all of those kinds of things. I was very weak. I was very small. Clothes didn't look good on me. And at the time, I didn't really understand why. I was like, but, you know, I'm doing all this walking. I'm doing all this body weight exercise. I'm not eating anything. I'm eating all these vegetables. I'm eating healthy. I'm eating clean, whatever. And I did build up a little bit of I suppose, maybe a bit of, I don't know if I'd call it body dysmorphia, but I guess for me, I have the opposite. Like, it's the fear of being small for me. So when I actually started my bodybuilding prep and I made it to stage, I did get back down to 49 kilos, but obviously with like a lot more muscle this time. So it didn't look as bad. Of course, you still have all of the health side effects. It's not healthy for you. It's not good for you. I had the low mood, the low energy, all of those things. And I couldn't wait to put weight back on after my show, because I felt like that same girl who had lost all of that weight before. And I actually took it quite slow putting the weight back on, because I stopped with my coach pretty much the day after my show because I was so unhappy with everything. I did take my reverse diet quite conservatively because I wasn't really sure what the outcome was going to be. So it did take me a little bit of time to put the weight back on. And I remember for probably a good 3 months, I actually remember meeting up with my sister maybe a month after the show, and I had my jeans on that would normally look so good in the off season. And she's like, "Oh, you're looking very small." And I was like, "Well, I just stepped off stage." And I was so sad. Oh. I'm trying to put the weight back on, and it's just been so slow. But yeah, so it was a little bit the opposite. So for me, changing to powerlifting, like, I've always felt a little bit more comfortable with a little bit more body fat on my frame. Obviously, you know, I don't think I have a high body fat percentage. I am still lean, I guess. I'm just not shredded or like extra lean. I just feel like I'm a normal person, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it's so refreshing to hear someone say that as well. So I didn't like myself when I was at my leanest, because a lot of the people that I speak to who are bodybuilders, they're like, "Oh, I can't wait to get back to that, and like I look so good," and you know, that's when they take all the photos and that's when they get all the compliments. So it's so nice to hear someone who's like, "No, like I actually prefer like my off-season shape."
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. Like, because I had a lot of bodybuilder friends and they would all be the same. You know, they would be like, "I just want to be shredded or stage lean again." And they would feel really like they would complain a lot when they put that weight back on. But really, when we kind of zoom out and think about that, and I did a post or an Instagram story on this morning, that it's not really the right message to be sending to impressionable general population women, because they are just a normal, healthy body fat percentage. You know, that they have muscle, they're training, they're eating, they have enough calories coming in, they're fit, you know, that they can train and push and not go backwards within their strength, and they're just being normal, healthy humans, but they're kind of hopping on Instagram and complaining about being not as lean, which I just think, you know, it's not the right message to send.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. There's one person that I follow from Sweden who has competed in it's IFBB, like one day you have to be like super, super shredded. And she just keeps posting photos of like being super lean and say, I can't wait to get back there. And I feel so shitty in my body. And like, I get it, because you do, like you said, you get a little bit of body dysmorphia, like when you see yourself all the time. But it's so important that if you are someone who's like struggling with your body image and you're looking at all these people and you feel shitter about yourself, like unfollow them and follow people who are actually going to show you what a normal, healthy body looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And I tell that to any of my female clients that sometimes, they might be like, oh, am I eating too much food? I see all these girls on Instagram and they're super lean. And it's just telling them, like, a lot of these things that you're actually seeing on Instagram or the content that you're consuming is a warped version of reality. A lot of these girls, they have dieted for a long period of time to get that lean. You don't know what their lifestyle's like, if they're happy, how they feel, what their energy's like, what their training is like. And now we're also kind of in this weird world where people who are already lean and jacked and look great are now edited and warping their photos even more. So it's just about, people that make you feel like that, unfollow them and follow positive role models in the community. Like, there can be so many positive accounts to follow when it does come to fitness and nutrition. Like, there's a plenty of dietitians that post really great educational content about fueling your body. There's, performance nutritionists. There's people who actually just care about living a healthy lifestyle. And it's not always about body composition or being the leanest version of you.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I don't know if it is just that I follow different accounts now, but I do feel like the industry is slowly changing a little bit. Like, I feel like there's not as many super shredded people. Like, I feel like even the top pros are like, okay, well, this is what I look like now. And, I'm not comp lean all the time. And this is my photo shoot from the prep, but I don't look like this now. But before, I feel like they basically do 100 photo shoots, or have 100 photos saved up to just post for the rest of the year until they got that lean again.
Yeah, that's actually very true. And I think the more people, the more positive people that you surround yourself with, the more content, like you said, that you're going to see, and you have the complete control over the content that you see on your page. Like, I go to a lot of effort to ensure that my explore page is just full of dogs, just constantly liking dogs. That's all I see when I go onto Instagram.
Oh, how could you ever have a bad day when you do that? Go to explore page, see all the puppies.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, you can make social media as positive as you like, but if you do follow those accounts that they might not be negative to somebody else, but they might have a negative effect on you, then all you have to do is kind of press that unfollow button and find your people, find the people that make you feel good. Yeah,
100%. And like what we see on social media as well, like, it's actually so crazy how easy it is to change how you look. Even just like swiping to the Paris filter, like something like that makes your skin looks a bit nicer. But fucking go to the beach, go to Westfield, go to a gym. Like, you're not going to see anyone who looks like the Instagram people you follow.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. It's just not reality anymore. And I do feel for young women and even men, because men can be just as impressionable, especially when they're younger or they have disordered eating backgrounds as well. Growing up, like, these days would just be so hard. You can't escape it whatsoever. And it's almost like you can't be a young adult anymore without feeling all of these pressures of looking a certain way or doing certain things or being X amount of successful at a young age. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So with your coaching now, you obviously work mostly with powerlifters. Do you get a lot of women who come to you because, they want to get away from like looking a certain way and want to be strong, or like, what is the type of clients that you normally work with?
I do have a pretty diverse range of clients. So I have clients that have actually been with me back from when I was doing fitness and nutrition coaching, and they've kind of seen what I've been doing, and they've made the choice themselves to either do a novice powerlifting meet or just, train at the gym for different purposes and get strong at bench or deadlift or squats or whatever it may be, while fueling their body and building their calories up higher. And what we really focus on within my coaching or my nutrition coaching is having enough energy, having low fatigue, having enough energy to recover from your training sessions, get through your training sessions, everyday life, overall health, having a good relationship with food. So I don't do a lot of advertising when it actually comes to body composition. So I feel like I get a lot of clients that probably gravitate towards just wanting to live their most energetic and their strongest lives and just overall be happy. So I do have, like I said, quite a variety of different clients. I have some elite level powerlifters that I work with. I have novice powerlifters, which is really cool. And I have just people who are looking at just training and getting stronger in the gym without actually competing as well. I do have a few clients that like to work on their relationship with food, but I think really within any form of working with someone on their nutrition, that's always a small part of it anyway, because if you don't have a solid relationship with food, it's very hard to make any progress within your nutrition, because that guilt builds up and you feel like you can't eat enough to fuel your body, or if you go into a calorie deficit, you feel like you're restricted, and then that binge cycle kind of starts as well. So I feel like that's the foundation of a lot of nutrition plans, really, is just making sure that clients do have a solid relationship with food.
Oh God, absolutely. And God, especially if you're doing something as heavy as powerlifting, I can't even imagine trying to pull a heavy deadlift or heavy squat or even a bench and not feeling fueled up. I feel you just pass out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes a world of difference. Like a well-fueled athlete will always make better training adaptations. You'll progress better. Your load on the bar will keep going up. And of course, like sometimes when it does come to strength sports, there are times that you do need to either go down a weight class or up a weight class or something like that. And there are phases where, you might need to do a calorie deficit, but it's just timing it in the right phase. So making sure you're not doing it in a competition prep or a peaking phase, and just really not having those two conflicting goals. So even though some powerlifters do have the goal to improve their body composition, which is totally fine, it's just not the main goal. So it's something that's quite easy to work on in the background. It's just making sure it's not conflicting with any of their actual powerlifting goals. So for example, like I said, doing a bit of a weight loss phase, maybe after a prep and a meet, and then going into an off season after that, and just making sure that you're not working on the two things at once, because they can be quite damaging to each other.
Yeah, of course. So for someone who is like, oh, powerlifting, like, cool, that sounds like something that I could be good at. Like, I like squats, I like deadlift, I like bench. What is something that you would recommend for someone who's interested in possibly doing a competition or getting started in that kind of training?
Well, I definitely recommend to reach out to a coach. Powerlifting, if you do want to get competitive in the sport and go to a meet, there's things that you need to consider, like the rules of the sport, and having a coach who can be there to handle you on the day. So if you are quite new to it, you want to obviously make sure that you're in a position where you're ready to peak. So you've got built up that base strength within your squat, bench, and deadlift. So working with that coach for a period of time who can help educate you on the rules of powerlifting. So the rules that you will need to follow on the day of your meet, making sure that you're prepared for it, making sure that you understand the competitive nature of the day, and working on building that strength up. So making sure that you are going to get the best possible outcome on the day as well within your squat, bench, and deadlift.
How does your training, I know you don't coach training specifically now, but has your training changed at all since you did bodybuilding versus what you're doing now?
There was a period of time when I was doing bodybuilding, and this was when I made the decision to change to IFBB, that I was led to believe that any squats and deadlifts would make your waist thick. So for a period of time, I did cut them out, but for the majority of the time that I've been training, which has been, over 7 years now, I have had squats and deadlifts in my program for most of that time. However, when I decided to I guess switch the focus more to powerlifting and really focus on getting stronger, there's a lot more focus on those two lifts. So in my off season, my coach, who is also my husband, programs for me more of like a power building style of training. So I've got the squats, I've got the deadlifts, we've got bench press, and we do focus on getting strong in those movements. But then I've kind of got all of my bodybuilding accessories in, and my volume work as well. The only main difference is, I suppose, since I was bodybuilding, I was training 5 days a week. Now I only train 4 days a week to allow for extra recovery. And then when we go into like our competition prep and we start peaking, which generally will happen anywhere from maybe 8 to 12 weeks out from your meet, just depending where about that you're at with your training and your strength and your goals and what you're working towards, you go into your peaking phase. So over that time, your squat, bench and deadlift, so your main movements, they're going to start to become your main focus. There's going to be a lot more heavy singles and things like that. So the reps with those are going to start to taper down. You're going to have your top sets, your back down sets, which are designed to help you get stronger. And then your top sets are teaching you how to express that strength. And then your volume work, so your accessory work, is going to start to taper down throughout that peaking phase as well, just to allow for extra recovery. So for example, tomorrow I'm heading into the gym to deadlift. I have 8 sets of deadlifts, which is quite a lot. So, you know, there's a lot of recovery, and obviously going into a lot of volume work after that, it would be really hard to handle, and I'll probably just end up having a half session really, because I wouldn't have the energy to go through with it, let alone recover from it.
Yeah, wow, 8 sets of deadlift, Jesus Christ.
And they're all heavy singles as well, so 8 sets of heavy singles.
Oh my gosh, yes, definitely need to make sure you fueled up for that.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to ensure that you do have adequate energy and you're meeting your daily energy demands. You have easily digestible carbohydrates pre-workout. And for me personally, I do understand I have the luxury of working for myself, so I can choose whatever time I want to go to the gym. But if I train in the afternoon, I have a lot more food in my system, a lot more fuel, and I'm always going to have a better session that way too.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any tips that you could give the listeners for, you know, how to fuel your body properly for a heavy session like that?
Yeah, so I would just to recommend, number one, make sure that you are at least eating at your maintenance calories. If you're eating in a calorie deficit with the goal to get stronger, it's going to be a lot harder process. You're not going to have as much energy to get through those sessions, and they're just going to feel a lot harder than they need to feel. So making sure that, yes, you're eating at least maintenance calories and having a good amount of carbohydrates. So prioritizing your performance carbohydrates pre-workout. So these are things that are easily digested, and having that within, you know, the 30 minutes before training, or even up to 60 minutes depending on the time. And like I said, having more carbohydrates in your overall diet as well. So making sure that, yes, you still have adequate dietary fats, you have enough protein, but really not being afraid to utilize carbohydrates, as they are our body's preferred energy source. And as someone who trains in strength sports, we really do want to utilize that, as it's just going to help us have a much better session.
So hear that, girls? Do not be afraid of the carbohydrates.
We need our carbs.
They are your friends. Yeah, I was just having this conversation with someone this morning, and they're like, wow, you really like bread, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, I love it.
Like, favorite food in the world, and there's so many variations of it. Like, you've got pizza dough, you've got rolls, bagels, pretzels, everything.
I know. I recently fallen in love with wraps again. Oh my gosh, just sticking all the veggies and the night sauce and some protein in there, and it's just the best thing ever. It's
so good. I know. Like, bread to me, if I could have every carbohydrate source coming from bread, I would be one happy girl. It's variety.
Yeah, same. So what's next for the future with you? Do you have any big comps coming up, or anything exciting happening in business?
So I am competing in my first sanctioned powerlifting meet in 5.5 weeks. So I'm really, really excited for that. So the last meet I did was a novice meet. So it was kind of just testing the waters and seeing how I like the sport. So yeah, I've been training or prepping for the last couple of months for this, and I'm really excited, as I have gotten a lot stronger throughout this prep. And I think, it's going to be a really good progression from my last prep. And then business-wise, not really anything planned in the foreseeable future. I am currently studying my bachelor degree in nutrition, which will lead me to my master's in dietetics. I won't be finished this for quite a few years, but when that time does come, my husband and I would like to open a powerlifting gym somewhere in Australia and have
cool.
attached to it. Yeah, so that's a long-term goal.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's so cool. And I feel like that's something, there's not that many of them. So I feel like having that, plus having him as a strength person and then you as the nutrition person, is just bringing everything that you need there for people to just grow and get strong and do really well.
Absolutely. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, we really do believe that it's important to kind of be really passionate and specialize in what it is that you are good at. So I know back when I was fitness coaching and nutrition coaching, I feel like I was being torn between two things all of the time. Like, you know, check-ins, there was so much to give with training and so much to give with nutrition. But now that I really do just focus on what I'm good at and what I love and what I love helping people with, it gives me so much more time with my clients to focus on that one thing, while he can have all of that time to focus on strength coaching and training and form and things like that with the same client. So because most of our clients are combined, he'll have them for strength and I'll be doing their nutrition.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. And I think that's something that a lot of people get wrong in the industry. Like, obviously a lot of the girls listening to this are training to become a coach. And like you said, like, pick what you like, pick something that you're passionate about. Because I remember when I was doing nutrition and training, I felt so torn. I was like, I don't know, like, I really like the nutrition part, but the training, I don't really like it, but I feel like I have to have it. But you don't.
Right. Yes, literally. That's exactly how I felt. I was like, I hate doing form checks. I hate writing programs. I just want to do nutrition.
Yeah, literally. And like, clients are going to come to you because you're really good at nutrition, but it's going to show if you're not that good at doing training programs. Like, my clients, I don't even like, they got results, but they could have probably gotten better results somewhere else. It was just that it was included in the service, but it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually talking to a woman yesterday just on Instagram. She just reached out about getting started with either fitness coaching or what route would you recommend going down with nutrition. And that's sort of the same thing that I said to her, although it might seem really appealing to do both of them and be like an online coach, when you think about longevity in the business and within your chosen career field, like training and nutrition, yes, they go hand in hand, but they're two completely different things. Like, they're completely separate from each other, completely different careers, completely different sciences, studies, etc. So choose the one that you really love and then excel in that and help people with that.
Yeah, for sure. And you're not going to last if you're doing something that you don't like because it's the right thing to do. Like, you are going to eventually get sick of it, and you might even start resenting doing check-ins and working with those clients, and that's not a place that you want to get to.
Yes, 100%. You were so right with that.
Well, it's been so nice to chat to you. Thank you so much for coming on. But for the listeners who are interested in finding out a little bit more about you and your services, where can they find you, and are you taking on new clients at the moment?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. So yes, I am taking on new clients. You can find me either on Instagram, which is m_fit_foods, or you can find me at www.enzylifestyleandperformance.com. So my business name is Enzy, ENZY, and that is a combination of both of my dog's names, if anyone is wondering what that means.
It. Oh my god, I was thinking that because you obviously can't see her, but she's wearing a t-shirt that says Enzy, and I was like, I wonder where that is actually coming from.
Yeah. So I've got a dog Enzo and a dog Bundy, and it just kind of came Enzy.
Oh, I love that. I was thinking, I wonder if it's her husband's name. I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we got that cleared up. Amazing. Well, guys, you know the drill by now. Please make sure you do take a screenshot of the podcast, you share it on your stories, tag myself, tag Emma, tag Women's Fitness Academy. Let us know what you thought. Let us know. God, let us know what your favorite carbohydrate is. We would love to hear from you.
Love to hear that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much again for coming on, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day. And everyone else, I'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.